Hey gang, Jones here, back to another video here today, and today I gladly get to announce that Grazing Warfare will release on April 30th. Now, I'm going to put a picture right now that shows the different times. I'm on EST and it releases at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, talking about the pricing for the game. So, you have the standard edition at $35 with a locker size of 10 by 25, secure lockbox at 2 by 2, and it has the standard edition equipment. I'm not going to through all the equipment because it's a huge list, but I can link it down in the description for you guys. Now, every single version of the game, so say you have Elite Edition, you'll get what Tactical and Standard Edition have. Mara has also said that the lockbox, no matter what tier you get, it'll be able to be unlocked throughout the game. And he also has stated that, like, given the locker room sizes, how they are bigger or different, those will be achievable through the game. Now, it might not be right at launch, but it'll be shortly after the release date. So don't worry if you don't buy, the supporter edition, have all these things. The locker size and the secure lockbox will be able to be achieved throughout, gameplay within the game. So continuing on, we just talked about the standard edition being $35. You have the tactical edition, which would be $58, has a locker room size of 10 by 35, a secure lockbox by 2 by 2, and then it gets what the standard edition has, and then $15,000 cash in game. Also, as you can see the picture below, there is a standard edition that has $10,000 in the game. Moving on to the elite edition, it is $80. The locker size will be 10 by 45, then the secure lockbox by 3 by 2. You'll get what the tactical and standard edition has, and then you have $20,000 in game. And then also, finally, you have the supporter edition. So your locker size will be 10 by 60. The secure lockbox will be 3 by 3. And then you'll get all of what the previous editions have, plus $25,000 in cash. And then the exclusives, you'll have a Grazing Warfare t-shirt in-game, Grazing Warfare gloves in-game, and then a special supporter name color and an exclusive supporter badge. So a lot of different things. Me personally, I'm going to get the supporter edition just because I believe in the game, but don't feel obligated to do that if you just want to get in and try the standard edition, and then you end up liking it, you can actually upgrade editions. So say you get the standard edition, whatever edition you may be, you can go on Steam and you can upgrade it for the difference of the prices to upgrade your edition. With this release of Grazing, I know people are going to be looking for communities to join, and if you would like to join mine, I have a Discord server, and I will leave it down in the description below. If you want to get with friends, play, all that stuff, have a chance to play with me if you'd like, then the link will be down in the description below. Now we're just going to go into some information that we learned from the Discord roundtable. There's going to be really no order with this. I just kind of collected my thoughts and put them down, and we're going to talk about each and every one of them. Just some info that will be in early access, be down the line in the future, and other things that they have been working on. So one of the biggest things that I noticed are the wipes and content patches. So every 6 months, they're going to have a big patch that releases new content. And then also with those patches will come a wipe. So between these 6 months, obviously they're going to have, bug fixes, hot fixes, stuff like that. But for the big content stuff like, dynamic weather, among other things, we know the first update that they say that they're going to release is for the day and night cycle. And then with the day and night cycle will come like, the NVG, stuff like that, the equipment to do that. And then the AI will actually act different within the world. So they'll be sleeping, stuff like that within the day and night cycle. So that is cool to know that every 6 months they're going to have some big content and something to look forward to within those 6 months, and then have a wipe. And then also that they're not going to let the game die. They're going to actually obviously have hot fixes and stuff like that throughout the game. Exciting news, early access, obviously, as we know, will look a lot different than the full release of the game. We got this info not only from Steam, from a while back, a couple months back, they talked about what the timeline looked like for full release versus EA, but Mara did go into detail and said that early access will only be about 20% of the game, which is really, really eye-opening considering what they provide in early access, or at least the start of it. And then if he means like by the end of early access compared to the start of the game, that is a huge, huge jump. So that's very, very excited to look forward to as far as the game being 20% done in early access. So you can go through the process, watch the game grow, watch the game get better. And to me, that's very, very exciting. They talked about how most of the bugs that were present during the creator test have been addressed and fixed. So that's exciting news, talking about, some of the issues that they had within the bugs. And then I'll go over more specific ones that people, hot button topics that people really talked about during the early access and what they needed to fix and how they did address them. One of those main issues that they did talk about was the LZ camping, which was pretty evident within the creator playtest. And then once the general public gets hold of it, it's going to be way worse. So what they did was they allowed people to shoot off the helicopter, which does two things. And Mara tweeted this out about being tactical and stuff. So you can not only shoot off your helicopter, but then, you can use smoke grenades, stuff like that to get off the helicopter and then get to cover. Now, they also talked about, I don't know if this will be implemented on release itself or slowly after, but they did talk about how they're going to have dynamic landing. So basically, the helicopter won't land in the exact same place every time. So if you pick an LZ, there'll be multiple locations that it can actually land. So you're not going to have people just, sitting at one spot and knowing that the helicopter is going to land there. There's going to be different landing locations for that, heli to mix it up a little bit and not make it so predictable. What we saw as well is people being confused on what faction people were in. I mean, obviously you could pull up the minimap, but by the time you pulled up the minimap and you realized who they were, sometimes you couldn't, differentiate between people because their camo is the exact same thing. So what they are talking about doing, and I hope they do, they don't really know if they should do armbands or like actual different color things. I think the best way to approach it would be like a whole different color camo, because you could differentiate between the factions. Like they have like this certain camo with this color, being where there's 3 faction stuff. Because right now there's no difference between either of the factions. It's just the lore behind the factions. So hopefully that they'll go like with a camo approach to where people can pick factions not only by the lore, maybe the camo, and then when you're out in the field and stuff, you'll be able to tell which is which, and you'll be able to make tactical decisions based on what camo somebody's wearing, if they are an enemy or a friendly. I know one of the biggest things for me was for the AI. So talking about the AI, a couple things that they changed. They did find several bugs about how the AI was very, very tanky. Now, I had seen where it was about the cavities and how they weren't registering or they weren't being big enough and stuff like that. So they have addressed a bunch of those bugs about AI being so tanky and are working on it. Also, they are working on the AI in the sense of injuries. So like if you shoot them in the leg, they can't run as fast. You shoot them in the arm, they can't really hold their gun up. So trying to mimicking what happens to us when we get injured, they're working on that as well. Now, the final thing they talked about was working on AI cover. When doing this, it's kind of hard because they have to have a cover system for like several thousands of AI. So they are continually working on it, because I know in the playtest and even before the playtest, like the creator test before the most recent one we had, the AI just kind of went around the street, didn't really do much. So hopefully they're able to, hammer that out and get it, working well, because nobody wants AI that just like runs at you, just has no thought whatsoever. So they are working on a cover system. Obviously, we don't know when it's going to come because it is a very complex issue, but it will come nonetheless. Also, guys, if you are enjoying the video and want to keep up with all Grey Zone Warfare content, as well as videos coming out about different quests and different items, stuff like that, consider subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. I did forget to mention this, and I apologize, but with those 6 months wipes and those content patches, there will be things that are added to the game that will not necessarily be in the patch notes, and we'll have to figure out. Now, they said that because of like, competitors seeing their patch notes and not being able to capitalize on different things. So hopefully with these 6 month patches and these like surprise, things that are in the game, they are very, innovative and stuff like that. If they're worried about, competitors seeing them and whatnot. So that's very cool to be able to go into the game and not know everything. So you have to figure out that stuff on your own. So that is very cool. Also, to continue on the hot button topics that we talked about, like LZs and AI and stuff like that, big things that we talked or saw in the playtest was about like being able to raid the base. So they've talked about how they have updated things to where it makes it way more difficult to be able to raid people's bases. Because I know some people were like getting in the base, they took it over, and then some people were spawning and then literally dying as soon as they got in the game, which cannot happen, especially with how much griefing is going to take place with the general public. They are going to try to cheese the game any way they can. So they have told us that they are changing a bunch of things, or they have changed a bunch of things that make it way more difficult to take over a base and more defenses and stuff like that. Also, to combat griefers that I just mentioned, they did talk about how people were killing AI guards and just kind of looting them, which I never really saw, but I guess it did happen. So if you do kill these AI, guards within your base, you cannot loot them. So that will stop kind of like the griefing cheesing to get like better gear and whatnot. So that's very cool to see that they're trying to like take these exploits and eliminate them as soon as possible. I'm sure there's going to be multiple more when the game does release, but they are going to address them and, work on them and address them as soon as possible. Speaking of being like rogue and things like that, they are talking about how if people, kill their own faction and stuff like that and just take people's gear, they are going to work on a system where they have to pay back into that faction to get back in. Now, I think this is a great thing because what it does is if they have to pay to get back into the faction to be able to access the actual vendors of the game, I think it's perfect because it really deteriorates people from actually being just griefers and killing people and stuff like that. Because if they do not have traders, they are very limited in what the game offers just based on the fact that, like, you know, they have limited guns, limited attachments that they can actually buy. Continuing on to that point, if there was some way possible that you could have like some rogue faction and then you have like traders out in the world that you have to actually find and be rogue and stuff like that, I think that would be cool. But I think that's giving the general public too much credit because people will just grief to grief and not, you know, go rogue to experience the game in a different way. So we'll have to see how they do that. We'll have to see how they, you know, approach griefing. But for now, that's one of the options that they have, is that they're going to have to pay back to get into that faction. And if it does eliminate those traders, I think it makes it worthwhile because people will not have access to much gear, or at least good gear, because, you know, they're rogue and they're griefing. So with griefing, there comes cheesing. So with that being said, they did talk about how PvE and PvP progression will be linked, which I don't like because I think people will just go into PvE because it'll be easier than PvP, and they'll just go in, do all the quests on there, and then move over to PvP, and then just throw it in people's faces with PvP. They'll just go to the opposite side of the map and just force PvP, and it won't be as natural or organic. And I feel like that could be a big problem and a turnoff because people are just trying to do quests, and then they have these people just coming in with all this crazy gear and just annihilating them. So I feel like they need to address that. They did say that they are going to look at it, and if it is an issue, they will address it, make changes, stuff like that. So I hope sooner rather than later, because they are going to see that the general public and like people are going to cheese things and just try to get ahead and just try to ruin people's day. So I'm glad that they're looking at it, or at least they're paying attention to it, and if there is an issue, they will address it. Two things that they mentioned that, you know, will, you know, resonate with like Tarkov players is there will not be a flea market, which I'm indifferent about this. I didn't really care if there was or wasn't, but Crash said it well in his video. I feel like where if they don't have a flea market, they're able to manage the economy a lot better, which I think is a great thing. And like I said, to me, it doesn't matter. It's either or. It doesn't really matter to me. And another thing they talked about is the hideout. And they talked about whether they're going to have it like within the map itself or some off map thing. And to me, I hope there's a way that they can implement it within the game map itself, because they even said this on Veritas and Jesse Kazam's, you know, podcast stream, that they want people to stay in the game. They want to make people experience the game. So I'm hoping there's a way that they can implement it within the game map, because I want to stay in the game and I want to experience the game. I don't want to have to go, you know, load to a separate screen to be able to manage a hideout. So I hope they address that, and I hope they put it in the map, and I feel like it'd be good for the game if they do that. All right, to end this, we're going to talk about some big content stuff. So one of the biggest things that I saw that was super, super cool is for the factions, there will be several camps around. I can't remember the exact number of how many camps. I think it's 4, but there'll be camps that factions can take and hold. So they'll operate as like a, you know, closer spawn point. And then also they'll have unique traders that you can get things from. So I think that's super cool that factions will be able to fight over those and gain those, get a spawn point, you know, get like unique traders that offer unique things and stuff like that. Also, the weather is coming at some point, and it'll be dynamic. So it'll, you know, change stuff like that, but it'll also change the map. It won't just be, you know, rain and then it just, you know, kind of rains on your screen or whatever. It'll actually change the map. They've talked about this forever ago, but I did want to reiterate it that they did talk about it again, that weather is coming. It'll be dynamic, and it'll also change the map as well. Now, there are 50 guns planned. Okay, watch, I think it's super cool. 50 guns, tons of different, you know, customizations, stuff like that. I think the beginning there's going to be 8 guns and then like over 400 attachments within early access, but they're going to slowly add those guns over time. Another cool thing that they talked about, which I hope they expand on this, they talked about how AI bosses will have certain guns, and I hope that you'll be able to collect them and, you know, have like trophies or whatnot. But what I hope they really, really do is not just make them like, you know, better, but I hope they have some like cosmetic effect where you can like show off that you know, killed this boss, or that you killed someone that did kill the boss. One of the things that reminds me of is like Rashala's like gold pistol on Escape from Tarkov. Like that is a very unique item, and you can tell that like you killed somebody or you killed him and took that gun away from him. So I'm hoping that they have some like, you know, cosmetic stuff along with those boss guns that says, hey, I killed this boss, or I killed someone that killed this boss. And, you know, they can be like trophies or collectibles and stuff like that, and they'll be very unique. The final thing that I want to mention, and I should have mentioned it earlier, is that consoles are coming. It's going to be way in the future after they land on the PC version, but it is coming. Also, there was a comment on a video I had a couple months ago if controller support will be a thing, and it 100% will. I did want to mention those two things. I apologize for not mentioning them earlier. I just said last minute thing that I saw on my list. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. You guys have a good one. I'm out. Peace.